You're doing everything right. The spot looks good, and still nothing. No bites, no tap, nothing. At some point, you start thinking, maybe it's the rig, but most of the time, it's not. And that's the frustrating part. So what is it? It usually comes down to three things: your situation, your setup, or your technique. Let's break it down. Let's start with something that doesn't get talked about enough. It doesn't matter how perfect your drop shot is. If the bass aren't there, you're just fishing empty water. I've done this way too many times. Bass don't stay in one place. They move for one simple reason: conditions change. In spring, warming water pulls them shallow. In summer, heat pushes them back down. In fall, they're chasing bait fish. In winter, they slow down and sit tight on deep structure. And they're not moving far to eat anything. Sometimes when the bite feels slow, it's not the technique. It's that you're fishing where the bass were, not where they are now. Move first, adjust everything else second. When you're in the right spot, even a bare hook might get a bite. Finding that spot, that comes from time on the water and understanding the body of water you're fishing. Every water fishes differently. Every rig has situations where it works best. So where should you actually be fishing a drop shot? First, where it doesn't work well. Thick weeds, messy bottom. Not impossible, just inefficient. If you're in those situations, a different rig is probably the better call. Where it does work: clean bottom with defined edges, steep drop-offs, rocky points, dock pilings, weed edges. And when other rigs have already covered the spot without a bite, that's when drop shot earns its place. Now, let's talk about the rig itself. Before we move on, hit subscribe and drop a comment. It's $0. Okay, let's say you're in a decent spot, right time of year. Now let's look at the rig itself. This is a small detail, but it makes a big difference. When you nose hook a worm on a drop shot hook, the knot needs to sit at 90 degrees to the line. If it's off, the worm moves unnaturally, and bass notice that. Something that doesn't move right doesn't trigger a bite, it triggers caution. Hook sets also become inconsistent. A drop shot knot handles this naturally. Palomar works too. If it's not sitting right, retie it. Now, you might wonder, if the line angles down in the water, does that 90-degree knot even matter? Here's why it does. Once it's in the water, gravity, buoyancy, rod action, and the worm's slender shape all work together to keep it horizontal. And when you shake the rod tip, that 90-degree knot helps it reset naturally during the pause. That's often when the bite happens. Now you know why drop shot anglers never stop shaking. I've been shaking for years. Drop shot is a finesse technique, and line choice matters more here than with most other rigs. Fluorocarbon in the 6 to 8 pound range is where most people land, and I think that's about right. Heavier line reduces the natural movement of the worm, and in clear water, bass can see it. The whole idea is that the weight sits on the bottom while the bait floats freely above. Heavy line works against that. Sinker weight. Match it roughly to your depth. Too light and you lose bottom feel. Too heavy and the drop becomes unnatural, and you might miss a bite on the fall. For worm size and color, starting natural is usually the right call. Green pumpkin or watermelon in most conditions, and size down if fish seem pressured. Setup is right. Location is right. Now it comes down to what you're doing once the bait hits the water. Drop shot is one of the most sensitive rigs for detecting bites. The weight sits on the bottom and the line runs straight up, so any movement transfers directly. But that only works if your line tension is right. When a bass takes a drop shot worm, it doesn't always run with it. Sometimes it just picks it up and holds it, mouth closed, barely moving. The only sign you get is a subtle change in line tension, a slight heaviness, a small bow in the line. If your line is too slack, you won't feel it at all. A bass could pick it up, taste it, spit it out, and go tell its friends there's a nasty fake lure out there, and you'd never know. A lot of bites happen on the fall, more than you might expect, especially on the first cast. The rig is sinking, and a bass just opens its mouth and lets the worm drop in. No aggressive strike, no obvious tap. Every cast, watch the line from the moment it hits the water. If something feels off, set the hook. If you've drop shot fished, you know exactly what this is. You feel a tap. You set the hook. Congratulations! Yeah, it's a panfish. We've all been there. Panfish love drop shot worms, and their bite can feel close to a real bass bite. But don't be too quick to move. Where there's panfish, there's often something bigger nearby feeding on them. It's worth staying and working the spot a little longer. Try swapping to a slightly bigger worm. So, looking back at your recent trips, which one of these three was your biggest problem? Was it your location, your setup, or your technique? Drop a comment below. I'm actually curious what it was for you. I'll see you in the next one. Happy fishing!